Welcome csc200. This is going to be ex12, and this is going to be the last portion of our exercises working with the SpongeBob database. And what we're going to do in this one is actually insert characters into our database and display them on a page. So far we've created a database, we've displayed our database, we've inserted characters that are just showing up on a table, but now we're actually going to put them into our database and connect to them. So it will involve opening up several files to use code from different files so that we could put it all together so we don't have to start anything from scratch since you already did the work. So I'm going to go into my container here, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder, and you're going to do this. You're going to make a new folder called ex12, and we're going to be copying some things in there, copying files, copying code. Make sure you go onto your Gorm container here and use the plus sign and make a new folder and just call it ex12. And then after you do that, now also let me point out that you should have also completed ex10, ex11 before doing this. So if you haven't done those, please do the other exercises. But what I'm going to do now is go into ex11. That's the one we did previously, and we're going to copy our index.html. That's the one that had a form in it. So I'm going to copy this. I'll just right click and I'll just copy, and I'll go on top of the folder here and I'll just paste. And it'll paste index in there. And what I'm going to do first is just open this up, make sure I'm opening up the one in ex12, and just change this a little bit. Make sure that this says ex12. Make sure it says, instead of database input, I'm just going to shorten database to DB, and I'm going to say insert, so we know that this is the one where we're inserting it and not just inputting. So down here, we could leave this the way it is, I believe. Here's one thing we're going to change here. Instead of display.php, we're going to make a new file, and we're just going to call it display12, since we're working in exercise 12, just to avoid any confusion, because we have a number of files named display.php. Just in case you have a number of them open, we want to make sure this is the one we're using for this exercise. So we're going to call this display12. Now, we don't have the file yet, but this is where we're going to display it when we're done. So that's all we should have to do so far for our index page. Remember, this is the one with the form that we completed, and I'll just save that. What I'm going to do next in ex12 is I'm going to add a new file in there. So I'll use the plus sign, and this time I'll just use file, and it's showing up as ex12. And I'm going to call this display, and you guessed it, it's going to be display.php. So now they should both be in there, and it did open this up right away. And don't worry about anything here. We're going to copy and paste information into here. And where we're going to get that from is going to be from ex10. We're going to go back to ex10. Now that's the one where we actually displayed everything out in a table. That was the one we used similar to the one with the world database. We displayed it in that nice looking table with the alternating colors. So I'm going to open that up. And that's why I said be careful. That's why I made this one display 12, because I'm going to open this up from ex10. And this had all our PHP in it, but we'll keep the HTML in here as well. And I'm going to highlight all of this. And you could just click your cursor in here, and if you're on Windows, do Control A. On a Mac, do Command A. And I'll highlight everything and then copy it. You can do Control C or Command C. And I'll copy all of that, and I'm going to put it into my display 12. And I'll just highlight over this so I don't have any extra tags or anything, so I'll paste right over this. So that should be everything inside there. And to avoid any confusion, I'm going to close up the one that says, if you hover over it, it shows you which one it is. It shows that's the one from ex10. So I'm going to close that up. So now I have everything from ex10, my display page, in display12.php. Now, as long as I'm up at the top here, I'm going to change this and say ex12. And it says SpongeBob DB. And I'm just going to put, I guess, insert, because that's the exercise that we're working on. You could put display, because this is actually the display, and I still have my name on there from the first part, and that's fine. And remember, these are all the styles that makes that table look nice. And then we also have this where we have our server information. That's where we got information, and it's already connecting to that server. And one thing we could do here, going out of order a little bit, but as long as we're in this file and we're copying and pasting things, another thing I'm going to copy and paste in here is from another display from ex11. I'm going to go into this one, ex11, this display. I'm going to double click on here, and what I want to copy is right at the top of the page. I want to copy these variables, just the variables. There they are, the ones that say first, last. I want to copy them, And then I could close this up right away. Now this one's from ex11 because we didn't use those in our first one because we weren't getting anything from a form. But I want to put these in here right after this. I'll just make a space and I'll paste my variables and I'll backspace here so everything looks nice. So that way on my display 12, I'll have my variables that represent connecting to the database, and then I also have my variables that represent pulling information from our form, because we are going to do that as well. We're going to have our input form on our index page. So this is going to pull information from the form, because we're going to pull information from a form to add characters to our database. So this will help us add characters to our database. So this should be okay so far. So I'm going to save that, and just make sure that this is from your ex12 folder and this is from your ex12 folder. You could close up index if you're not using it right now, because right now we're working on our display file. And also in our display file, what we're going to change here is we changed the title already, and we're going to go down here. Now remember, this is the one where we finished up and we just showed the female characters from SpongeBob. I'm just going to get rid of that for now and just say select all from characters. So that will show everything from our database. And we have this SQL variable that's basically representing that. It's running a query, it's taking the result from the query, and it's putting things into rows like this. So this is what's happening with this so far. The only thing in index I think that we changed, other than the title and stuff, this is now going to be going to that page. So that's working okay. So after copying these in here and changing this query, this is going to be like the display query. So, I mean, you could even change it to say display SQL, but we already have that done, so I'm not going to change that. The next thing we'll do here is we'll put our headings above here. This will actually display our information, and we're going to go through and make sure we display it first. But since we did our headings in the past on our previous exercise, we could do it here, and it's actually really easy to do. There's not a whole lot to change. I'm just going to copy this whole echo statement, and starting from echo and ending with the semicolon, and I'll copy that, and I'm going to put it before the while loop. So we're after here where it says output data of each row. I mean, I could even put it in front of that if I want, but I could put it right here because that's not really the data for each row. This is going to be the headings. In fact, I could even put a comment here that says headings. Now remember, when we had headings, these things were all THs. So these were all THs, and you could go through and do those. Okay, so I changed all the TDs to THs because remember, they're headings, they're not individual cells. So we have our TR, closing TR, and I have opening THs and closing THs. Now we're not going to have these here. These are actually going to be just the information. So what you could do is actually just highlight these and just backspace and get rid of the row and the opening bracket, and then we'll get rid of the bracket at the end so that this is just text. If you remember, our headings were just set up like that. Now we could have copied the headings from the other one, but I thought it'd be easier just to do it from here rather than opening up another file and trying to copy and paste stuff. So we need to get rid of the bracket on the end here as well. So we'll get rid of all the brackets. Now this is just regular text. It's just regular strings, and these are going to show up on the top of our table. That's output. And remember, that's why we did it before this while loop, because this while loop is going to make multiple rows, but we only want one row that's going to echo basically our headings. And we're going to have all 6 headings. We're going to have even though in our form we just had the first, last, species, gender, we're going to output all of the headings. So that's why we have ID, first, last, species, gender, and city. And same thing down here, we're going to output all of them. I noticed on the other exercise, this call span could be changed to 6 so that it spans the entire 6 cells that we have here. I didn't do that last time, but this should be changed here. So you could do that. It's not a big deal. And then another thing, which is just a little thing here that you could change, is right here where it says connected to. And if you forget to do this, it's not a big deal. You'll see it later. You'll see it later, but if you just put a space here, that way if we have another statement that shows up there, it won't be right up against the period. It'll be after this thing here, and there'll be a little space because we may have another statement that shows up. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to save this. So that wasn't a whole lot of work, and what I'm going to do, make sure that's saved, make sure this is saved. They have X's, that means they're saved. Now I'm going to bring this up here, and I didn't connect yet, so I'm going to connect, and I could use my start text file here. And we're going to connect with everything, so we could use all 3 here. So I'm going to highlight this, click here, paste it, and hit enter. And when you get your next prompt, then you could highlight the Apache, paste that, and then you could even put it into MySQL. We're going to do MySQL because we are going to go into phpMyAdmin. So you could type in MySQL and hit enter. And as long as it's running, you don't really need to look at this, so I'm going to minimize it. And I don't need this file anymore because I just used it to copy and paste things from, so I'll close that up. So now we have this, and what we want to do is, even though we're not going to use it yet, I'm going to connect to both my index page in ex12 and also my pt1. So I'm going to get both of those kind of set up here in tabs. So you could use this project, running URL and port, and just use this button here. And remember, if you want to go to pt1, just click here right after the gorm.io and put a / and then just put in php myadmin, and mine came up here, so I'll just hit enter. And then you should have your login where you could just put in root, and it should take you into pt1. And you should have your SpongeBob database with a lowercase. And even if you click on this, just double check that your table is with a lowercase c. We did that last time, but if you happen to use a capital C, make sure you use that in your code. But I used a lowercase c. And just to refresh my memory here, I'll ignore this again. I'll just see that I have 8 characters here, starting with SpongeBob going down to Larry Lobster. If these are in the wrong order, you could put them in the right order, put them in the click on ID and put them in the right order. But we have 8 right here, so our next one should be 9 when we start adding to this database, but we're not going to do it here, we're going to do it from our web page. So again, I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to click on this one more time, which will open a new tab, and then I'll go into Gorm PHP, and I'll see that hello Gorm. And now I'm going to go here after the / and type in ex12. That's our new folder. And now we have our insert here. And I'm not going to put anything in here yet because we don't have any code to insert. We only have code to display. So I could cancel out of this. I have both files. So if my pt1's right here, my web page is right here, and instead of doing anything yet, now we don't have any form validation, so we can hit submit without filling anything out. Eventually we'll do the form validation with JavaScript as well. But I'm just going to hit submit, and that will make it jump to the next page, and it should display our database. Let's see if that works. And it does. And there's our headings, ID, first, last, so our headings are there, and everything's looking in nice colors here. Now it's putting that color at the top, and that's okay. And we could change that if we want. And there's our bottom one there showing our results, and it's saying connected to SpongeBob. And if we get any errors or any problems, we could put them there. We might have another statement that shows up here, but that's working. So this is displaying. Now we already did that before, so that's not a big deal. But now what we're going to do is we're going to insert more characters to this table and display them as we go. So I'm going to stop here, and we're going to start with that at part 2.